Hello, everybody. It's me. I just thought, it's been a little bit since sorry, I got the sniffles also. It's been a little bit since I've done any sort of video in talking. I've been pretty busy also, working, um, trying to do crazy life stuff, trying to keep up with it, and sometimes that's not easy either. Um, but I'm coping. I'm doing it. I'm just trying to stay strong and just keep going. That's all I can do. There's nothing more I can do. Just keep going. I don't give up, and I don't want to give up. I want to keep going until I take my last breath, and that's going to be a long time from now. So, I got time for lots of things. Well, I thought I would I know the last time um I did a video, it was about my ancient ancestry, I think it was. Well, I'm still learning a lot about my family. Um, like I said, I come from a mixed ancestry. My mom's family didn't really mix that much. My mom's family's from Wales. Um, but as a little girl, her father was a coal miner, my grandfather, and he got a contract to work in England. So when my mom was like a teenager, I think she was a teenager at the time, she settled in England with my uncles and auntie and my grandmother. They all settled in England instead of Wales, where they were, raised and born. They were all they all settled in England because my grandfather had a contract as a coal miner. So my mom, the rest of her teenagehood, all the way up to womanhood, um, she was raised in England after that. And she had all her kids in England, except for me and my sister, my full sister. We were the only ones that were born in the USA. And when it comes to my mom's ancestry, um, it's mostly Welsh, but there's a little English. There is a little English. Scandinavian and German, I think is something like that. That's it. My mom's family didn't really mix that much. The majority of her, Welsh. And it shows up in my DNA because my highest is Welsh when it comes to my European. Um, I'm like 40 something percent. So I took about 40, and that's almost all my mom right there. Almost all of her. So my mom's family didn't do too much mixing. My mom is your typical European Welsh woman. Now, on the other hand, my father, he's Mexican American. My grandfather came from I forget it I know he came from Mexico. Now my grandmother was born on the American side of the border. Um I forgot where, but I know she was born on the American side. But no matter how, it all goes into Mexico anyways, because where the border is, almost all that used to be part of Mexico. All whereas in the US used to be part of Mexico. So, regardless, my family has always been in the US and Mexico for, well, a long time. And, well, since colonization, or some of my family's been here forever, for thousands of years. Well, my it's confusing when people say you're Hispanic, you're Latino, you're Mexican. When someone says my family's full-blooded Mexican, or my family's full-blooded Puerto Rican or Dominican, do you know what do you know what you're talking about? Because really, it's only heritage. Because when it came to colonization, it became a Spanish talking and speaking people because it was colonized by Spain. Hello, common sense. And some of the countries weren't called those in the beginning, like Mexico. It wasn't even called Mexico, it was called New Spain. There was different names for each place. But when each Hispanic country, a Latino country, won their independence from Spain, they finally got to name their own country. And that's where they came up with Mexico or Puerto Rico. But that doesn't make the races that made you up. It's only heritage because they named it Puerto Rico. Now we're Puerto Ricans, or now we're Mexicans, because now our country's called Mexico. Doesn't make the race that made you up. Really, Hispanic people are a mixed platter of a person. That means they are not of one race, they are multiple different races within one family. Like, for instance, my family. Um, when it comes to my dad's side, Spanish. When it comes to the European, I'm going to put just the European first. Spanish, Portuguese, Italian, Basque, and England. I think that's pretty much it for when it comes to the European. But then there's the Jewish. There's Ashkenazi Jewish, which some people consider them European, but they consider themselves Middle Eastern too. Um, and then Ashkenazi Jewish. That's our family. We have Ashkenazi Jewish and Sephardic Jewish. Um, and then we have indigenous. Indigenous is really big in my dad's family. My dad is at least, I would say, between 38-40%. 38-40% indigenous. Me, I'm only 21 to 25% because it got watered down. My dad didn't marry another Mexican that had indigenous blood. He married a European woman. So my dad had to make room for my mother's DNA in me too. So it made me more white, more European. But like I said, them are the European groups. And then the Jewish groups is what I said. And then the indigenous, which with the indigenous, most of the indigenous would be around like Mexico, um, and part of like Texas, New Mexico, and maybe part of Arizona. around those areas. But then we have Central America, which is around El Salvador and somewhere around there. But that's really small. It's like for us, it's like 1 to 3%. But it's one of our smallest. But somebody got in the mix that came from those areas once upon a time. So any sort of indigenous from that place or European, African, mixed, I don't know. But somebody came from over there that had indigenous DNA that was coming from Central America. And then when I looked at my ancient ancestry, somebody from Puerto Rico, which back then it wasn't called Puerto Rico, but now it is. Um, an indigenous man matched my DNA, and he's Taino, which wow. But then like I said, I think we're just a mixture of different indigenous tribes, not just like one specific indigenous tribe. We might be coming from different indigenous tribes that made us up. Then we have Canary Islander. Uh, so maybe that's where some indigenous comes from too, mixed with the Europeans, the Africans, and all that mixing up. I don't know. It could get. I gotta figure all this out. And then we have our African DNA, which is North African, which is our highest. When it comes to our African, it's small, but it's one of our highest compared to West Africa and Southeast Africa. Um, the North African is coming from like mostly like Egypt, um, Mozambique, places like that. Um, and then when it comes to our West African is a lot of our family showing up with Ghanaian and Nigerian for our West African. And then for Southeast African, they're staying around the areas of Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, and a little piece or a portion part of Republic of the Congos, something like that. And then we have different um, Mediterranean, Mary Islander, North African, Sephardic, Jewish. We have is just a mixture of a platter of a person. We have people coming from the Levant, which is, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's like mostly around like Turkey, places like that. Makes sense again. So, and then when I looked at my ancient ancestry, we have people speaking a language that a lot of people in India speak. So maybe when it comes more ancient, we're going more into Asia. So I think my family pretty much on my dad's side has been mixing not just for hundreds of years, but thousands of years. They were the rebellious group of people within their own people that says, I'm not marrying my own people. I'm going to marry whoever I choose, and you're going to tell me. I don't know, but I found my dad's family very interesting because of the mixture and how it came about. Some of it was forced, yes. I think I know that. Some of it was, a lot of it wasn't. I see a lot of marriage certificates where it comes to a lot of Europeans were marrying indigenous women, and a lot of European women were marrying indigenous men. They said, heck with these European guys and women. I want these. I want these Indians, indigenous women, indigenous men. And I knew it had to be kind of funny because the indigenous ways were a little different than the European ways because women were supposed to submit to their manly demands. It's not wrong to be kind, nurturing, loving to your husband, you know, and try to support him in what he's trying to do, what he's trying to accomplish. So, you give him encouragement. But now when he becomes demanding to the point where he's abusing you, he's hitting you because he's not getting his own way, that's too bloody bad. That's the time where you got to stand up and say, not going to do that to me. And I'm sure they weren't used to that because women in the indigenous tribes, they were very powerful women. They were, a lot of them were ahead of their tribal, um, a lot of people went to them for wisdom. And some of them were even warriors along with the men. They went out hunting just like men. There was no specific, you know, you're a woman, you're supposed to be in the kitchen. No, women did do that. Men did it too. Everybody did shared work. And that's how it should be. Anyways, everybody should share responsibilities. So, at that, you know, um, I find that very interesting. I do. The only way for me to get more deeper into my family and ancestry, um, I'm going to have to start making a travel. And I'm going to have to start from my dad to his parents. I want to find out everything I can about his parents. Because I know my grandfather was married to another woman before my grandmother. I'm not sure what happened to his first wife. I'm not sure if she might have gotten sick and passed away, and then he continued with his life and got remarried eventually, or they got divorced. I don't know. I'm curious about that because I know my dad had a half sister from my grandfather's previous marriage, but I never knew that he had a brother from his previous marriage. And I found out that he drowned. I'm not sure how old he was, but he drowned and he died from it. I'm not sure what he was doing in the water. Was he alone? Was he, I don't know. I'm not I'm not sure what was going on to make him drown and for the water to take his life. What happened, I don't know. But my dad would have had a surviving half brother, and I didn't know that. I knew he had a half sister. I didn't know her that well, but my dad said and my mom said I did meet them once or twice. And I don't remember. I was so small. I don't remember it. Um, but I really need to really dig into it deeper because the internet gives you only so much information on family members, but the rest of it, um, they want you to go really deep into index. And the way to do that is that you have to physically go where that information is. So to start out, if it came to my grandmother, I would have to go where she was born, who her parents were, and what they did with their life, anything I can about them. And the same with my grandfather, I would have to go into Mexico to get that information because my grandfather was born in Mexico at the time. My grandmother was born on the American side. So, but there was a certain time, like I said, that the American side used to be part of Mexico. So the whole family is going into Mexico regardless. You further it goes back before America took that part from Mexico. Um, it was Mexican territory. It was their land. Yep. So my family has basically been here, the colonizers, when it comes to the European part, the African part, um, the Jewish, all the other mixing that was in there from the Turkey to the whatever, the Levant, um, into West Asia and so on, even into Asia. Um, all our family has been in the US since not US. Well, some of it in the US, some of it in Mexico. What is now Mexico? Back then, it wasn't even called Mexico. And back then, the US wasn't even called the US. So, but a lot of my family was here since 1493, something like that. Yep, all the way till now, except for my indigenous part of the family. They've been here forever. This was their home. So really, I'm home. I've always, my family, part of me has always been here, but the rest of me, I'm part of colonization. Some of the ugly history and the dark history that was done to the indigenous people, probably of my family, the African people of my family, the Jews, maybe even some of the Europeans, depending on, um, especially the ones that married the indigenous people because they couldn't take their children home to them because their European, full-blooded European families would not accept them, accept their grandchildren. Maybe only a few might have and not even cared what the world thought. But at that time, indigenous people were considered savages. Africans weren't even considered human. So part of my family was treated badly. The Jews were treated badly. Um, uh, I don't know. But the European part, some of them, I guess, were the rebellious ones that refused to care what their families thought and married an indigenous woman or a man anyways and had the children. They were disowned. Some of them were very much disowned from their families. They said, okay, all I'm going to do is love my kids, raise them. If they don't like it, too bad. Now I'm on my own, and I would teach my kids differently, and I would love them. So they called us the unwanted people, basically, once upon a time. Part of us they loved, and part of us they did not like very well on my dad's side. But you know what? We wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for all that mixing. I wouldn't exist if one of those ancestors were missing out of it. I'm not ashamed of it. I'm proud to be a human person. They gave me life. Jehovah made us beautiful. Jehovah made us beautiful. It's amazing what you can learn from your family. The only reason I want to really go deep into my family is because I can learn like traits from my family. Where did I get this from? Where did I get that from? Like our calm misdemeanor. You know what I'm saying? Our relaxed. Why don't we get angry so fast? You know, why are we so calm and relaxed and laid back? And where did we get that from? Who was the relaxed, calm, and relaxed person, that barely got angry, but when they got angry, watch out. But then after a few minutes it's over with. It's like it didn't even exist. It's like, wow, I want to know where that comes from. Who was that person? What kind of illnesses were capable of having? I already have thyroid issues. So I'm not sure if that's coming from my dad's side, my mom's side. I'm sure it's both of their sides because somewhere in the line, my parents are probably related because I see in my matches, when you get matches in your DNA, my dad and my mom are sharing some of the same ancestry. And I think it's mostly the English because there's no, my mom has no Spanish. My mom has no Portuguese. She has no, Basque or indigenous but one thing they share in common is the English. I'm not sure how my dad got the English. I'm thinking it might have been uh, through that girl that woman that I told you guys about, like in one of my earlier movies. Um, in one of my earlier videos, it was a slave girl, and she was considered indigenous. They they categorized her as indigenous and, if you know what I mean, mulatto. Basically, one of her parents was full-blooded indigenous, and then one of her parents was mixed race of African and European, and she was a slave. She was one of those mixed slaves with three different things flowing through her DNA. And Mr. George Calvert had 6 kids with her. And I think I guarantee you, this is where it's coming from. I could be wrong, but I don't think so. Because he had a wife, a European wife, and he had 9 kids with her, but majority of them passed away from illnesses, diseases, and I think it was only four, if I'm not mistaken, that made it to adulthood and had children of their own. But on another plantation, because George Calvert had more than one plantation, he had a slave girl and he had 6 kids with her. And I guess eventually, before he died, um, he gave all his 6 kids their freedom. And he gave the woman that he had the kids with her freedom. So they weren't considered slaves anymore. And he basically, in his will, when they make out a will before they pass away so they know what stuff is going to who, he made a will. And not many slave owners would ever do this for any of their, like, especially slave children, ex-slave children, because they weren't even slaves anymore. He wanted to, give each child um, different properties and different things that, he had. And he wanted to give all his children, not just his European children from his European wife, but he also wanted to give his slave children or ex-slave children property too, and give them what he had. But the European wife fought, like, when he did die, she fought the will, trying to dismiss the other kids from the will, because I think she was probably an angry woman for his infidelities, which I don't blame her, honestly. And because and she was jealous, probably, too, and angry, like I said. But at the same time, she fought in court, hey, uh, this woman is what do you call it? An infidelator and adulteress. She's a young woman taking advantage of an old man. I'm not sure how much older, like I said, how much older he was than her. I have not a clue. I don't know. And said some things, some horrible things. Yeah. And it only goes so far in documentation. It really does. And then I guess the rest, if I wanted to find out more, I would have to go to Virginia for that. I never knew I had Virginia, like, roots, like, coming into I always thought it was just around Texas. I never realized we had any sort of roots in Virginia, but we do. And it came from that slave girl, which we because there was a few of us that were the mixed ancestors, the mixed children, I mean, mixed generation from that generation. Um, and then you had your full-blooded white Calverts. But today, our names aren't Calvert anymore. It's all like most of us have Spanish names because I think we all probably descend from the women that came um out of the out of the kids, because usually if it's a male, the Calvert name would pass on, but if it's a female, it wouldn't. So I'm sure it was a woman that that's why it never passed on. But it's in the genome. Um, so that's where it's probably coming from. I swear. And then maybe that guy, if I look deeper, that person could be related to my mother. So it wouldn't surprise me because my dad and mom, when it came to the matches, they, some of my matches are from the paternal and maternal. And it's mostly English. I'm sure it's the English. Yep, there's European in there, and it's the English. No doubt about it. So basically, family hooking up with family, they just don't know it. Some of us will never know it until we take a geno test, find out we're related. Like, ay, ay, ay. But it is what it is. It is what it is. Ah, but I wanted to eventually try to go into going right to the source of everything and to the index, and I eventually want to record every step of my movement so that everybody can see it and see my family before my very eyes and the truth of my family. Some of it might not be nice. Some of it I probably would be very angry at. Some of it I was already angry at for the things that I found out. And some of it I was happy about. Because it seems like in my dad's family and my mom's family, both of them, there are a few people out of the bunch that scripture, the holy writings of God's word, they all always went into it, researched, dig for they dug for truth, kept on digging for that truth, kept on reading and understanding the scriptures, and it changed their life. And they became a more loving, affectionate, kind, honorable man, woman out of it. Like Jesse Berry. Um, and that's from my mom's ancestry. And there was somebody from my dad's family too. Um, he got deep into the scriptures, researching, and digging for that truth. And it changed his heart. He realized the things that he was doing was against the laws of God, and he needed to change them, and he did so. He tried to do everything right. Yeah. So people like that in my family, I am proud of. I am happy to see. But I'm not proud of the ones that did some awful things. Yeah. Eventually, I would like to make a long video when I dig up more information, and I would love to tell it to you guys and give you guys more of that information because it's very interesting. It's like history before your very eyes. I love history. When it comes to history, I am a fan. I am. I know it sounds ridiculous. It sounds. I like true history before my very eyes because believe it or not, when you trace your ancestry back, you're looking at history. You're looking at true history, the way they lived, their life, the experiences, the time of you know, like the 1400s, what was going on then. You can see, who lived, who died, how many babies. Oh, you see people giving birth to babies, 13 children or more. I know a woman in my family. She had about, I think it was like 15 children. It was 15 children coming out of, oh, Having 5 kids was enough. 15 children. And they didn't have like all the, technology and all the stuff they have today. I'm surprised some of them, I almost died with having my second child. And having 15 kids? That's insane. And they made it through every one of them. Right on. That's crazy stuff. But yeah, this was just a small little video for now. But when I get more into digging up more stuff of my family history, I would love to tell it to you guys and tell the history behind it. Um, tell you the things that I found out, the good and the bad, you know, the good and the bad. I would love to tell you all about it. Well, have a good have a good night. Adios. Adios. Bye.